First up, the Vostok SK-1, the very suit won by Yuri Gagarin, which happens to be the one that made history in 1961 as the first thing a human ever wore into space. But here's the part about this suit that stayed secret for a decade. Gagarin never actually landed inside his capsule. At around 7 kilometers up, he was ejected from his seat and parachuted down separately, alone, trusting a suit that had only ever been tested on dummies and dogs before him. The problem was, international rules at the time said a spaceflight only counted as official if the pilot landed inside his craft, so the Soviets simply told the world he wrote it down and stuck with that story for 10 years. Which means the very first spacesuit in history wasn't built to protect an astronaut in the vacuum of space at all. It was built to save one from his own spacecraft on the way down. But the Americans were building something built for the opposite problem entirely. Then came the Mercury suit, worn by the first American astronauts that same year. It was silver, skin-tight, and adapted from a suit built for Navy jet pilots, not for space at all. Picture this. You're sealed into a capsule barely bigger than a phone booth, wearing a suit so tight, astronauts joked they could barely scratch their own face inside it. And that suit has exactly one job. If the cabin ever loses pressure, it's the only thing standing between you and the vacuum, for as long as it takes to get you home. Nobody had left a spacecraft on purpose yet, so nobody had bothered designing a suit that could survive it. That was about to become the entire point. Next, humans start climbing outside their spacecraft for the first time. And that's exactly when things start going wrong. Which is why the Berkut suit exists. Worn by Alexei Leonov in 1965 for the very first spacewalk in history. It had its own oxygen supply, built to survive fully exposed to the vacuum of space, untested outside of that moment. And almost immediately, it nearly ended him. In the vacuum, the suit ballooned up so much that his hands slipped out of his gloves, and his feet slipped out of his boots, and he literally couldn't fit back through the airlock. With his oxygen running down, and no one able to help him from outside, Leonov made a call nobody had rehearsed. He bled pressure out of his own suit until it was thin enough to squeeze through, risking decompression sickness to avoid being stranded outside the spacecraft entirely. He made it. Every spacewalk suit built after this one was designed around not letting that happen again. That failure led straight to the Gemini G4C suit, built for NASA's own first spacewalk just months later. It added a tougher outer layer to handle micrometeorite impacts and direct sunlight. But the whole spacewalk still hung on one thing. A single rubber hose connecting the astronaut to the capsule's oxygen supply. No backpack, no backup air, no plan B. If that hose kinked, tangled, or tore, that was it. But NASA knew immediately they couldn't keep sending people outside on a leash and hoping the leash held. Not everyone followed that approach. The Apollo A7L went a different way. The suit that actually walked on the moon. This one finally cut the cord. A self-contained backpack. The plus, carrying its own oxygen, water for cooling, and communications. But even that had a failure point. Strapped to the astronaut's chest was a small emergency tank called the OPS, holding only a few minutes of backup oxygen. The entire margin between backpack fails, and you don't make it back to the lunar module. All of it wrapped in around 21 layers of material, built to survive swings of over 260 degrees Celsius between direct sunlight and shadow, on a surface with no atmosphere to soften either one. Now we leave the moon behind and head into the disaster that changed how every future crew got dressed. The fix came in the form of the Soyuz Sokol. Okay, this one deserves more time because it's the most important suit almost nobody talks about. In 1971, the 3 cosmonauts of Soyuz 11 flew home without wearing pressure suits at all. Their capsule was too cramped to fit 3 people in suits, so mission planners decided they simply wouldn't need them. During re-entry, a valve jarred loose, and the cabin lost all its air in under a minute. All 3 men's lives were ended before recovery teams even reached the capsule, and to this day, they're still the only humans known to have ended in the vacuum of space itself, rather than during a launch or landing failure. The response was immediate. From that point on, every cosmonaut had to wear a pressure suit for the entire launch and landing, no exceptions. And that suit, redesigned within about 2 years, was the Sokol. It's simpler than the moonwalking suits, not built for spacewalks at all, just built to keep someone alive if that exact failure ever happened again. Next, the Shuttle EMU, short for Extravehicular Mobility Unit. Unlike every suit before it, this one was modular, built from separate, standardized parts, so it could be resized for different astronauts, instead of custom-built for one person. In 1984, it made possible the boldest spacewalk yet. Astronaut Bruce McCandless strapped on a jetpack, unclipped his tether completely, and flew free hundreds of feet from the shuttle, with absolutely nothing connecting him back. Just the suit and the jetpack between him and permanently drifting away. It worked, but NASA never tried it that way again. Then there's the Orlan suit, the Soviet answer to long-term spacewalking, and it works nothing like the suits before it. Instead of zipping in, you climb through a hatch built into the suit's own rigid backpack, and someone else seals it shut behind you from the outside, more like being sealed into a one-person capsule than getting dressed. The upside? A single cosmonaut can get fully suited alone in under 10 minutes with no help at all, which matters enormously if there's ever a real emergency and no time to wait for a partner. And finally, the newest generation, the sleek black and white suits SpaceX built for Crew Dragon, first worn in 2020. These astronauts aren't spacewalking, they're strapped into their seats through the most dangerous parts of the flight, launch and landing, which is exactly when a sudden cabin depressurization would happen with the least warning. So instead of the bulky, flexible suits built for working outside, this one is tightly fitted with a 3D printed helmet, built to do one job fast: keep you breathing in your seat if the one thing standing between you and vacuum tears open. They're the clearest sign yet that the era of one-size-fits-nobody spacesuits is over. So that's every spacesuit that actually mattered. Nearly every design on this list exists because the suit before it failed somebody. Which of these suits do you think you'd trust the least? Let me know in the comments. And if you want the full story of what nearly went wrong on Apollo 13, subscribe for more of these.